Footage of an alleged alien interview has been making its round across the internet since the late 90s. But is it real? Where did it come from? And is that little guy okay? Because it sure looks like he has some sort of problem. Between frame-by-frame breakdowns we found of what's happening in the video, my own investigative research, and John's remote viewing data, we started to put together a bigger picture that's way crazier than we ever thought. Area 51 secrets may have been leaked right here on tape if we know how to interpret what we're seeing. Join me, Rob Counts, and John Vivanco on Metaphysical for a show that's out of this world. John, how you doing?
Doing good.
Good.
This is one of those fascinating ones.
Yeah.
Again, I love these things. So this story disappeared for a long time, and I was, in the remote viewing field back then. But I didn't chase it down. Never chased it down. Never remote viewed it because it died out pretty quick.
I think it's what makes this show awesome is that we are bringing up some of the craziest stuff, and
Right.
that's just life. I think people out there think it's crazy because they're not used to seeing a version of the world that is outside of the narrative that they've been feeding us for all of
Right.
these years,
Yeah.
And
That's really what it comes down to. It's like remote viewing. It's like, hey, give me proof that remote viewing works. Otherwise, I'm not going to believe in it. Well, why don't you take a class? That way you prove it to yourself. No, I don't want to do that. You got to prove it to me.
But we're going to go over the entire kind of history, I guess, of this alien interrogation / interview / intervention, because it looked like it started freaking out or having some type of seizure or something.
It's disturbing, man.
It is. It definitely is. And there's two, just to kind of explain. And before I do, I want to give a big shout out to the Unofficial Alien Interview channel on YouTube for uploading the original footage, interviews, and their own analysis of what happened. It's been like a big help. I use that research here to begin putting together a timeline of exactly what happened, plus listening to the interviews ourselves, of course, and doing more of our own research. Then at the end of this, you guys, John is going to share his own remote viewing data that his team gathered on this alien interrogation. And then we're going to see what really happened. So stick around for that. In 1996, Rocket Pictures Television Company in LA received a phone call from a man claiming to be an Area 51 insider named Victor. And he had possession of a videotape interview with an alien. Now, Rocket Pictures, strangely, is I guess a television company that was started by Elton John. It's called Rocket
That's
Pictures, obviously, because Rocket Man, I guess, big
right.
big song of his, decided to call it Rocket Pictures. Why Victor chose Rocket Pictures is a question mark. It could just be it's the only one that responded, right?
Right.
But then in 1997, after this information started coming out, Art Bell interviewed Victor via telephone, and he had this like bluish looking footage that was shown. Oh, well, it wasn't shown on the interview necessarily because that's radio, but it was like, this is what people were looking at. And it was really, well, basically, I'll go over what was in the video. Okay. And then because there is a separate set of footage that's a lot more color corrected, it seems, and it's a higher quality. And that footage actually came allegedly from Rocket Pictures. So the video has an alien. I'm going to describe this to you guys so you know what's going on, and we're going to show it to you, I'm sure, here as well. So the video has an alien in a dark room where, when he begins to have what looks like a medical issue, a seizure, or something like that, two medics shine a flashlight on him, wipe something from his face, like he was, foaming at the mouth or something like that. They wipe something from his face and they tend to him. The video has a DNI tag. This video has a DNI tag, which Victor claimed stood for Department of Naval Intelligence. 27 is the division DNI adopted for a logging system of some sort. The rest of what's on screen is hours and seconds. So when you're seeing this, it's like, old VHSs would constantly have hours and seconds on there, whatever. The video was first digital, and then it was put on VHS tape. And we'll go over more details after we finish the timeline of events.
Wait, so it was first digital and then
I
put on
know
VHS, or VHS and then digital?
it was it was digital in Area 51. Like they were recording on something, and then it
That's
was
interesting.
taken out and put it on VHS, allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess back then it was like, well, we've got digital or VHS like available. Let's just put it on VHS.
They had
Right?
camcorders.
Maybe. I
Someone
mean,
someone there was probably smart enough to figure out how to film directly on a digital system. Later in 1997, a documentary with the footage and an interview with Victor was released as a home video. Victor claimed, quote, "We're looking at the interview suite at S4, S4 being the building, I'm assuming. It's kept dark for the comfort of the aliens," he said. Since this video came out, like, oh, why is it in such a dark room? They did that to make it look more real. This is a puppet. This is special effects, blah, 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 right?
right.
Um, on the Art Bell show, Victor claimed that the being arrived at Area 51 in 1989, and the tape was from January of 1991. Victor couldn't explain how he got the tape, probably to protect himself, but he was the active agent responsible for removing the tape from S4, this building. He provided a VHS copy to Rocket Pictures. The actual data was digital, a small bundle of digital info. Now, he couldn't confirm he was an employee of Area 51. He was very careful in how he was explaining all of this, but Art Bell surmised that he flew there. He flew into Area 51, which is a few different ways to get
Right.
into Area
I
51.
had heard that they would fly people from Vegas basically. That was your work day, is that you'd go to the airport, isolated part of the airport, get on a plane, you'd fly in, work, and they'd fly you back. And that was basically how that place ran. Nobody
Right.
lived near it, drove in.
Okay, so Victor said that the government claimed they shot this alien down, but he doesn't think that they could have shot it down unless the aliens wanted to be shot down. So he's kind of saying that their technology is so much more advanced than ours, then we would not be able to shoot them out of the sky. So they must have wanted this alien to get interrogated, to get interviewed.
Well, that's why you also hear a lot of talk coming from this realm of, they say that when they get a ship, it's a gift, right? It's the
Yes.
gift. They've been given the gift. And
Mm.
yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing of it. It's like when we've looked into it too, like with Roswell, for instance, the Roswell crash, it's the radar that seemed to take it down, collapse the gravity that it was creating, the gravity field, the gravity wave, and caused it to crash. But it's also at the same time, it's like, no, I mean, we like they knew that that was going to happen. The aliens, it's like they put themselves in that situation for that to happen. Same with Skinny Bob too. Skinny Bob. Like when we were reviewing that, it's the same thing. It's like, well, we wanted Skinny Bob to be captured.
Victor said that there's this half-hearted attempt to minimize microbial contamination of the beings. Like if you watch the med team as they come in to this alien that seems to be having some sort of seizure or something like that, they're kind of wearing stuff that doesn't really cover their arms properly. The masks are kind of half-hearted. Their physiology, the aliens, seems to be similar to humans, but doesn't have some elements that we do. He reveals that the beings have telepathic capabilities. They don't speak. It seems some humans are more able to send and receive these messages back to them. This is the heart of the black programs related to these beings. But Victor finds it funny. He's talking about this. He finds it funny that many, if not all, of the telepaths who were recruited by the government, they were recruited by the government, are the lame kind of psychics you can call on the telephone a psychic late at night, like the 1-900 psychics. He thinks that it's heavily influenced by the assumptions of the so-called telepaths or trying to tell the government what they think they want to know. If telepathy with them works, why can't we consistently use their technology or have effective relations with these beings? This is a question Victor is asking, right? The aliens can't speak, but occasionally use gestures. This is another thing he revealed. Victor believed the aliens understand us a lot better than we understand them, and their communication is always carefully planned. The beings have been here before, and the program they have with the human race is as old as the human race. This is what he said. So, what they've been doing, how they've been operating with human beings is just as old as the human race is, according to Victor. Now, this is in 1997, which is pretty interesting that he's talking about this in 97. He believes that these alien beings are from another dimension not available to us, as opposed to this Zeta Reticuli theory that they're all from Zeta Reticuli.
People will argue about this till the end of the world, where they're from here. No, they're from there, from here, from there. But it's like most people probably can tell the difference between these different races that look slightly similar. That form that this being is in is not unique to one race. It's a form that's been bioengineered across the universe to do lots of different things and dimensions. So yeah, the thing could literally be from anywhere and look similar to what people claim are zetas.
We're going to get into what John is talking about. This gets really interesting when you start talking about what you're saying there, that this has been bioengineered. Um, but before we get into that, one thing Victor said is that he did encounter this being himself. Like he encountered this being himself, and he felt a presence he wasn't used to inside of himself. This is a like he seems like a very non-emotional guy. He wasn't an emotional person and didn't connect with people very easily. And you can kind of tell that he's like that, and how he's almost like kind of like, I don't, autistic or something. Like the way that he kind of comes at the questions and all of that stuff. He's this very, very particular dude. He felt really uncomfortable with having this weird emotional connection to something that he couldn't really explain, because he's not used to that with human beings at all. It probably helped open him up a little bit, to be honest, because the dude was probably pretty recluse. How did the public perceive this is kind of the question, right? So some people in the public were pretty upset when they watched this video. There is a lot of back and forth on this, because it looks like the alien was being treated pretty badly, like it was being roughed up a little bit, right? And Victor said that wasn't the intention, and its maltreatment was just our helplessness to either help or affect him. Like there was just only so much the medics could do. And then also, uh, Art Bell's guy who researched this, who was on the show, on this 1997 show, basically was like, I don't know why people think this guy is getting roughed up. It just looks like they're actually trying to help him. It's kind of, unclear, but still to this day, people kind of think that this was like a heavy handed interrogation. So yeah, this medical team was probably just a dog and pony show because they didn't know how to help.
I think the explanation of him being in a dark room. Why is the room so dark? Some people would say, well, it was to hide the puppeteer. Others were saying, well, no, the alien needs low lighting. But then these guys come in and they like shine a flashlight right into his eyes.
It's like, yeah, it's
I
this,
thought that
it's
was a
it's
little
like
ironic.
the limitations of human medical, right?
Right. Right. Give him a lozenge.
Well, I feel like doctors, especially back then, like I remember that was the first thing they would do to me in the doctor's office. I'd go in for like just a checkup, and they'd be like, shining a
Yeah, I
light
know.
right in your eye and looking in there. So yeah, all of these reports with aliens or anything like that end up with these aliens dying. But he only heard this alien disappeared, not that he died. But Victor really strongly thinks that the alien was dead by 1997. Now, this is where it gets into what you were just saying, John. Autopsies have showed that the beings do appear to function as biological entities. but there's a lack of the physical functions we'd expect from a biological entity. So many people think they're not quite physical, that they're somehow hallucinatory, no matter how real they begin to be, or no matter how real they seem. And they could also just be, of course, an entirely different life form that we don't quite understand how they developed under their own conditions in space or whatever. So this is kind of like what you were saying. I mean, imagine that.
Right.
Like even though it's physical, it's like a hallucinatory being that you're encountering, but it doesn't have any of the biological functions of anyone from this dimension because they're potentially not from this dimension.
It's like a holographic mind virus being or something.
That's a great way to describe it. Holographic mind virus being.
That's interesting though. That's yeah. I mean, can you imagine like something from a different dimension with a totally different construct of consciousness? Could be something like that.
Hmm. This was also an interesting thought that Victor had. He said he thinks aliens aren't dying because they can't live in our environment, but it's sort of like when someone comes down, like Jesus or something, to Earth and can't really be harmed by man, but they make themselves vulnerable to men purposely, for whatever mission that they're on, whatever the mission that they've been tasked with.
The underlying thing that we get a lot of when looking at these types of events, whether it's a crash or Skinny Bob, for instance, or even the treaty Eisenhower made with aliens. It's always the same thing. It's the idea that Eisenhower met with what people call gray aliens in order to make a deal at that point in time, and the deal was specifically something about technology for access to Americans for
Yeah.
genetic. It's weird. Yeah, it's weird. I'm not comparing it to Jesus or anything like that, but that's their messaging that comes across quite often in data.
And then you start like thinking about all of those missing people, you know,
Right.
all the
Right.
missing people signs and everything. And you're like, I wonder if that has, something to do with it.
Well, this is where when we were doing a viewing on this kind of stuff, where it appeared in our data that like 75% of people, at least in the United States, have been abducted into this genetic program that the treaty basically developed. But then it started to break out of the treaty, and these beings started to take advantage across the board. Like you can't trust them from a human perspective. You can't trust them. They're doing what they're doing because they think they've got to do it for themselves, and they don't care about treaties or whatnot. It's basically just the door to get in.
No, this is pretty interesting. In kind of everything calmed down for several years, but in 2008, a special edition DVD featuring the return of Victor was released. Victor was frustrated that people either took his video at face value or tried to say it was fake without actually doing any analysis. So various Hollywood makeup artists either claimed it looked very real and didn't know how parts of it could have been done, or that they could have done it better themselves, right? So of course, those people, it's just their ego speaking. So that was ticking him off. Um,
Right.
Rocket Pictures released their own version of the tape, which looks to be much higher quality than the bluish version where there's a pen in front of it and Victor's pointing things out. However, there's speculation it was darkened to obscure the people around the alien and hide their identities, meaning Rocket Pictures took the original footage, darkened it so that certain people in the room would not be clear to the audience at home. Allegedly. Now, in 2013, this is also kind of bizarre. Now, this is 5 years later. So that was 2008. This is 2013. A masked figure known as Victor Nevada put the footage online with his analysis of it. And this dude was not the original Victor. He had a British accent. So Victor Nevada later revealed himself to be a UFO enthusiast named Andrew Burlington, And of course, this was not the same person as the original Victor. Burlington sold videos of his analysis. The official Alien Interview channel on YouTube uploaded Burlington's analysis in 2015. The channel was run by the former president of Rocket Pictures. Okay, so little details from the video kind of reveal a lot about what's going
Well,
on.
wait, hold on,
Yeah,
back up 1 second. So
sure.
this video now, right now, has been in the evidence shown to Congress in congressional hearings behind closed doors.
Tell me a little
So
bit
this
about this.
video,
Yeah.
yeah, this video has apparently been one of the pieces of evidence that is shown to Congress. I don't know who's showing them, but it's included in the evidence packets, apparently. So somebody out there on that level believes this video's real, right? And we would be talking intelligence whistleblower types.
And when was this? When it was shown? Recently?
Yeah, recently, I think it would have been within the year or last year.
Whoa.
And right now, we are set to have more, with both Senate and Congress are going into more UFO hearings.
So this is really this the revealing of this video just keeps coming back since 1997.
It keeps coming back,
It doesn't
right?
go away, which is pretty
Right.
telling. I mean, usually if this footage would kind of die out, people would forget about it over time, but the fact that it keeps surfacing, I think that kind of lends some credibility to it in my opinion. What do you think, John?
Right. Right. Well, I think that these videos, like the Skinny Bob video, you can kind of see the attitude of Victor versus the original person who uploaded the Skinny Bob videos. They have the same sort of attitude, and that attitude is they want to see how people react to it. And then they react against the reaction. And they say things like, if this isn't accepted, then no more will be released. Right. And like with this video, he's like admonishing people for just looking at the surface and going, it's a puppet, right? He's admonishing people for that. And I think a lot of these programs are actually intelligence operations in order to see how people react to it. And that's what I think this is. I mean, look, Victor would have been just obliterated in a second
I was gonna say, like,
if
they'd have
that
raided his home the moment
it
that
would
he
have been
was
so
on.
fast, so
Yeah.
fast, so fast. Would not have been able to go on Art Bell a whole bunch of times, live for years. This video, floating around everywhere. Come on, these things are of the highest classification when it comes to intelligence and black projects and stuff. They're highly compartmentalized. My whole thing about this is that it like Skinny Bob. It was a release of information to see how people react. Are they going to be okay with it? Because that's the whole thing. Like the Brookings report, 1960s or 70s, 60s, NASA conducted the report that came out of the Brookings Institution to understand how the population would react to the knowledge of aliens, right? 1960, right? And basically the conclusion was that no, we should not tell these people about the reality of aliens at all because society will literally collapse,
Meltdown.
right? Yeah. Yeah. Government will lose its power, et cetera, et cetera. So,
This is kinda what I mean by I don't always necessarily think it's an evil to kind of keep this from people all the time because and, again, I'm not for all the secretiveness. At the same time, though, observing how people react to things over the last 10 years, people can have something right in front of them and they won't even acknowledge that it's real or true, or
right.
the opposite, where if it gets accepted, there's societal meltdown because it's changing people's perception of reality. And once that perception has formed and something comes to challenge it, that can be very dangerous. I mean, we've seen it multiple times in history. How many people have died from that? You know, countless people
This
have
is a
died from
crazy
it.
place, man. This is a crazy place.
It's
This, this,
volatile.
this is this is like a melting pot of a huge amount of different vibrations. If you're looking at this from the perspective of outside of the physical, what this appears to be is this huge melting pot of vibrational frequencies. Some are very high and very enlightened, and then it runs the gamut all the way down to the very, very dense, low, slow vibrational realm where people will just murder each other for nothing, for a dollar, right? Right. And in between that is a whole mass of things, people stuck on ideas that they've created and they will fight to the death over. And so these you get this whole mixing pot of vibrational frequencies in this realm. Yet those people who are even at the lowest, since they exist in a realm where these other vibrations, higher vibrations exist, they can easily tap into those too. I'll tell you right now that our media, and you know this obviously, and so does everyone listening here, our media is hell bent on
Yeah.
keeping that vibration very low
Yeah.
when it would be so, and this is an engineered thing to keep people, most people, in that state. If you can keep them in that state, you can rise them as well, but they don't do it. They don't do it. They don't want to do it, because once you rise them, you lose control of them. But that's the most inevitable thing. That is the most inevitable thing that is going to happen, that has to happen. And I don't understand. I don't understand why that low, low, low vibration can have that much control over an apparatus that speaks to people's brains in order to keep them in a certain mind state. It trips me out.
Yeah. It is. It's really trippy. But
Yeah.
then, you if you do, if you pay attention to history, I mean, look at when Socrates arrived on the scene, he was literally the entire Greek culture had been built around sort of this like weird socio-political academia.
Right.
He comes in, his crime was telling people they didn't know what they were talking about. He simply told people if they think they know something, they don't.
Right.
And he would prove it with every single wise person that they told him to go visit. It
Right.
angered those people so much that they accused him of, affecting the peace, of disturbing the peace, and he was put to death. And he was awesome. Have you ever read Apologies? Like the Plato's Apologies, and just how he handled being in court and his whole process of reasoning? You can't argue with the guy because he was right.
Right.
They still
Right.
killed him.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like, so an idea that a person has becomes their self identity, or an aspect of their self identity. And in order to, if somebody questions your self identity, then most people will fight to the death over keeping that identity alive. Because if you let go of that identity because someone's telling you it's not real, it's wrong, then who are you? They're threatening your own survival, right?
Yeah, it's weird though. Like any improvement I've made to myself or even my professional, you know,
It's letting go of your
it's letting
identity
go of it. It
and
has been.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been like, "Oh, you're right. I'm an idiot and I need to," or like, "You know what?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know this the best
Right.
that or how I thought I did." And then like I make a little improvement and the next day is better. I can't imagine the route where I'm so all in on something that I couldn't break from anything that I had previously thought. That
Right. And you're
actually
going to
sounds
fight
terrifying.
to the death over the holding on to that idea. The basis of meditation for enlightenment throughout any tradition that uses that is to be in a place where you let go of the self. And the self is an amalgamation of ideas of what you think you are. And that is what leads you to an enlightened state, the letting go of that, right?
It's yeah, anyway, we'll come back to
Yeah,
Victor
tangent.
now. I know we got into a philosophical conversation here, which we often do on this show, but yeah, but the reason for that conversation is what would happen if it was widely accepted that this video was real? How would society actually handle it? I mean, we've got obviously an intelligence operation going on here where they've leaked real footage to analyze how people are reacting to it over a 25 plus year period. It's still being put out there, and we've got Elon Musk going on TV telling everyone that aliens don't exist because he certainly would have seen them if they do.
I'm not aware of any evidence for aliens. People ask me about that too. Where are the aliens? I'm like, man, if anyone would know about evidence of aliens, it would be me. And I've seen nothing.
But I know he's BSing when he comes out there and starts talking about this stuff. You know, we've got so much evidence of this, and if you're turning a blind eye to it at this point, like I don't even have
Well,
anything to say.
he's going directly up against Robert Bigelow, who Bigelow Aerospace, DARPA contractor, owns Skinwalker Ranch, who said they walk among us. So
That's
he's going against that. I mean, come on, man. You're both DARPA contractors here. That deal with space.
That's an
Sure.
interesting perspective. Okay, so details from the actual video. Let's get into that real quick. There's a little light jumping in front of the alien, which appears to be a heart monitor. Now, interestingly, it would indicate that it's monitoring only one ventricle, whereas normal heart monitors for human beings have two lines and two ventricles. So their physiology could be different. It's led some people to believe that. This light from that machine is shielded from the alien by some rectangular object or screen. There are two figures in the foreground who are watching the alien, and you can kind of see this in the frame by frame analysis that they did. They appear to be military men, with one of them having insignia on his shoulder. The figures appear to be watching through plate glass, and you can tell by the reflections of the glass at some moments in the footage. This video was not cut or edited. It was all filmed in one take, which is really important when you think about how difficult that would be trying to fake this footage. Like if you were at a film studio doing this, one take is always very hard to do. So, let's get into allegations here, and then we're going to have some remote viewing data from John. So, we'll get through the allegations really quick. Okay, telepathic people were standing there watching the alien. That's how they communicated with him. That's one of the allegations. Now, this one is one of the more heavy ones. Colin Powell interviewed an alien in April of 1991, and this is the footage. He's the figure on the left. That was another theory here. But Victor said it was in January of 1991 when this was filmed, and Victor didn't not mention Powell. But of course, if Victor is a psyop, he would have kept that information private anyway. Now, listen to this. The budget estimated to fake this would have cost $250,000 to $350,000 at the time. The heart monitor would have had to be synced to the puppeteer exactly precisely. The face movements of the alien would have had to be synced precisely with the medic's movements, which was totally synced with everything the medic was doing, right? Okay, those are very difficult things, especially back then in 97 to do. This shot was done in one take, which is unlikely if it were a hoax with a puppet. Again, as we said before. Saucers have been kept at Area 51's S4 area. They were still there in 1997 and they hadn't been moved. He found it not hard to believe there would be tunnels, but he didn't see them himself, Victor. He believes aliens allowed humans to do things with their technology. This is his claim. He thinks that aliens are allowing humans to do things with their technology.
I like in the video, you can see its mouth, move. It's opening up, closing. It's like the Skinny Bob video where there's these slight facial things going on as well. But I can understand why people would immediately jump on it's a puppet, just because it's got no expressive skin movements or anything going on except for the mouth moving. And that's just the go-to, just because people won't believe this out of the gate. They just won't believe it out of the gate for the most part. Most people won't, right?
But I think there could be possible explanations for that. Like if this being is not used to the gravity on this planet and he's in a much lighter gravity, he would be struggling with his muscular infrastructure to be carrying the weight of its own head in this environment, right? Also, the air pressure could be different, could be having trouble breathing. There could be a number of things that would make him look like that, struggling that way. that if you kind of look at the physics of things, that could be a factor here. What do you think, John?
We've been trained to just be material and to rely only on the five senses. But it's really important to read the energy behind something to get out of this. It only stuff that impacts our five senses is what's real. If I've never seen anything like that and I see something like that, I'm going to take it as not being real. What about instead, without going into that, feeling the energy behind it? We're all capable of doing it because there's an energy behind it. And forget about what other people think or what other people say. Most people also will just jump on the bandwagon of it being fake because
Mm.
we live in a society that calls these fake, and if you step outside of that norm, heck, you might not be able to survive in that society. And so we're pack animals, and it's all about survival, and you've got to agree with others in order to survive, and you get fed, and et cetera, et cetera. So you can guess probably where I'm going with it. Based on the remote viewing data, like Skinny Bob, it's an effing alien. In fact, actually, this is actually what showed up in the data, like right off of the bat, was the first thing that we do in remote viewing is we do something called ideograms. And in one of the sessions, one of the first ideograms was an ideogram of a subject, right? Now, keep in mind that the remote viewers have no idea what they're remote viewing. What's that?
Ideograms can be several different things. It could be like a subject, it could be architecture, it could be
Right.
what
And they're
else,
just
John?
like,
What are
yeah, subject, water, structure, natural landform, energy, or water, right?
okay.
And so we train ourselves in utilizing very early on in a session what we call ideogrammatic language. And an ideogram is something that has a concept or idea behind it, but no actual like sound, word, vocalization for it, right? We use it as a bridge between the subconscious in remote viewing and the language symbolic zone, right? So it's our first step. So we are trained to do ideograms, and we just do them really quick. It comes from the subconscious. So one of the first ideograms a viewer had was the subject, and then we probe the ideogram, right? Viewer doesn't know what they're doing, right? They don't know what they're remote viewing at all. They're tasked on so many different things, like could be anything in the universe. And the first thing they said was, "It's an effing alien."
They
And then
wrote
they
that
go into
down.
more, yeah, write
Right,
it down. Because that's the initial impression when they probe
right.
that subject ideogram. So, and then they, go forward, which lines up with all the other data, as this being has a large head. We know this, the video, right? It's got very large eyes. The way that it moves is extremely odd because when it walks around, it sort of waddles back and forth, almost like frog like, or like a very large overweight human would kind of like
Yes, so it's weak.
waddle when they walk. So it's like this weird, maybe
Gravity.
not used to gravity,
Yeah.
right? Like the tasking on this was to describe what's going on in this video, describe what that thing is right there. And that's really highlighted in the video, the central character there, and how that's done, basically. And it's a really simple thing for remote viewers to say, well, that's a person in a suit, or there's this structure that's connected by these like sticks, and somebody's moving it around,
Right, if it was a
or
puppet.
yeah, or there's digital manipulation happening here, right? So everybody has to understand this is a really simple tasking.
Mm,
So when the viewers start just right out of the gate saying alien, describing an alien, its movements, this and that, okay, we know what we have here. It's an alien. We know
mm,
what we have here, right? So we know it's an alien. The data indicated that it was having issues as it appears in the video, and that there was a medical emergency going on, and some type of medicine was being administered, and the medicine felt like something that would reduce infection, like an iodine, something older, some
mm.
older type of medicine that would reduce some type of infection that was going on. And this was something that this alien liked. It was looking forward to this because it was
Weak.
providing this relief to a condition
Yeah.
that it had, right? And the condition was basically the environment. ultimately, when you get down to it. It was kind of the same with Skinny Bob. The It's not their normal habitat, right? Then we get to what was going on there. And this video I would call the alien interrogation. I wouldn't call it the alien interview. It was an interrogation. Like, this shows up in the data, a very high ranking general, likely related to Joint Chiefs, someone who is read in and very compartmentalized into this program. We've known in the past through remote viewing that the DNI, the Naval Intelligence, has a big hand in alien issues here on Earth, because it's if you think about them, it's the water above, in a sense. Like, they're responsible for the seas, both below and above, in a sense. And so they have a very, very keen interest in any type of race that's coming here, right? It's expressed in this, that there is this general who is very, I wouldn't say he's like overtly upset, but he's like saying, you crossed a line. You broke it. You crossed a line that you were not supposed to cross. So this goes back to this old deal, or any old deal, because I think that once that initial deal was made by Eisenhower that we had verified with RV, you had other deals that were made in black project groups. For the most part, these things, whatever they are, we don't know where they come from. It's probably is dimensional, because remote viewing doesn't, like, say, a planetary system or whatever. Remote viewing doesn't say that. Remote viewing describes things at a very basic level and doesn't go into these high level concepts that humans create about these things. And staying at a low level, that is more accurate than the concepts that we have for these things. And it's actually the concepts that get us into trouble, because the concepts are akin to self-identities that we fight to the death over, right? What it appears to be was that the line that they crossed was to infiltrate a certain area and set up like a facility. And the facility seemed to be underwater, or very close to water, in a very icy area with like these snowy ridgeline of mountains, which I'm thinking, it's likely Antarctica or something like that. When some kind of deal was made to keep them out of a certain area, but they decided to go into it. So this was what it was all about, and why he was basically saying, you crossed this line. And this was also the result of, when you hear them say, the alien ship was shot down, the UFO was shot down. We didn't get anything like that, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't. This becomes more relevant to that, because they were in a combative state with each other. This was like a captured pilot situation, and they would have, once they realized that they did breach that line that they knew they weren't supposed to cross, they would have gone after them and captured one of them. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the story that we have behind this. And I know it's going to, again, raise the ire of a lot of people that just believe it's a puppet and this stuff can't happen, much like the Skinny Bob thing. But when you have multiple remote viewers, blind, no idea they're viewing this, all saying the same thing, throughout my 25 years of remote viewing experience, working real world projects in order to come to conclusions on real world things that always work out. You just go, yeah, it's just another walk in the park here.
Yeah, if it
They're
walks
real.
like a duck and it talks like a duck, it's
Yeah,
probably a duck.
yeah, exactly.
And so this sounds like it was some sort of line that was crossed, almost like you've broken the treaty. It's like an act of war kind of thing.
Yes, active war. Yep, absolutely. There have been a
Wow.
lot of those. We've seen a lot of those types of things.
Well, and I mean,
Acts of
why would
war.
you expect them to follow the treaty if their goal is to abduct human beings and do testing on human beings? Like, this is not a
Right,
benevolent
right.
species. This is an unemotional, species after something, right?
Think back to, like, in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, there was the whole space wars thing. So night vision goggles started to become popular because they were, better ones for the public and stuff. And that one guy, I can't remember his name, used to do videos and go on TV shows and say, there's space wars happening up there, right? And there's these lights going around and there's like puffs and like
Yeah.
beams shooting off and stuff like that. So when we remote viewed all that, it was absolutely space wars. There were humans involved with it. The TR3B that people call that. We get descriptions of that kind of thing involved with like fighting with really alien-y type stuff. And that's like the same time frame. So, and we see this like over and over in remote viewing data when we view some of these events, is that there has been, there currently is a war going on that the average person has no idea about.
Well, and this is where the $4 trillion disappears to,
Right.
when the Pentagon loses, paper trail of $4 trillion, where did it go?
Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
They're developing probably pretty simple airport that should cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and it ends up costing $4 billion, like the Denver International Airport. Not that that's similar. I think those are bunkers, but you get what I'm saying. It's like they have ways of hiding where the money is going and what they're doing. It's funny too, because I remember that the night vision goggles started to become more popular, revolved around the Iraq war. Am I wrong with that? It seems like that, right?
I don't remember. I just remember it was in the 90s that we could start. I think it was in the 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah,
We can start to get third generation night
right.
vision goggles.
Man, that's pretty interesting. Like, I wonder if they've had to change the night vision so that it doesn't see some of that stuff anymore.
I've
Or,
got
or
third gen night vision. I see that stuff. I mean, for
you've
Pete and
used
I,
it and you've looked into the
oh
sky
yeah,
and
yeah,
saw.
yeah, absolutely. Like so, I've seen on multiple occasions things flying in a like a beam or projectile shooting off of it. Pete and I saw that in Australia. I've seen it out here where I am. It's like if you have night vision goggles and you go out nightly to watch the sky, you are going to see this stuff. Of course, you're going to see a ton of satellites, and you have to know how to discern those from other things. But when you see something that's moving very fast and shoots a beam off of it, or could be a laser. I mean, it could be like some kind of sensing satellite, right? But then we remote view it. Obviously, we're going to remote view something like that. You see things that are moving very fast and make a U-turn. I mean, come on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on up there that just people don't pay attention to in general.
My take home from this entire video is this podcast is that I need to get my hands on some third gen
Yeah,
night vision goggles or something. That sounds like
definitely.
a whole lot of fun.
It's awesome. Yeah.
All right. Well, man, that is insane remote viewing data about this video. As far as we're concerned on this podcast, this is a real video that was released specifically to key people into what's really going on for whatever reason, whether it be a information or intelligence war, and or they're trying to observe how humans are going to react to these things. At least from our perspective, this is confirmed. This is real, and you should check that video out. I would listen to the Art Bell radio show where Victor is actually talking to Art Bell. It's a whole lot of fun. That whole video is fun. It just brings you into it. Could have been yesterday that was filmed, honestly, the way he's talking about stuff. So yeah, John, thanks so much for being here and for going through all of this with us. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and
Fun.
then for those of you at home, please leave a comment for us. Let us know what you think about this episode, about the footage that we reviewed in this episode, and what you think about the video. And we can have a discussion out there. And for those of you at home listening, we hope you guys thought this episode was as out of this world as we did.